Hello and welcome to Through the Bible with Les Feldick. An Oklahoma rancher and farmer, Les Feldick has been teaching homestyle Bible classes for 20 years in Iowa, Oklahoma, and Texas. Les Feldick's unique style of Bible teaching has made the books of the Bible come to life. When Les is teaching, it's so interesting that people say time just seems to fly by. And now, here is Les Feldick.
Okay, good to have everybody again, and we're just going to pick right up where we left off, and now we'll go into Romans chapter 2, verse 1, and we're going to take the second segment of humanity that God is building his case against, and we're going to slip away from the grossly immoral segment to the moral people, and they're just as guilty. Again, we like to welcome our television audience, and we're doing this routinely for a few programs. Keith thought that we weren't making enough of the videos and the booklets, so he was good enough to set up a little display that the camera can pan in on. And so we want our television audience to be aware that all of our past programs, lessons, whatever you want to call them, have been made available now on videotapes and also in the printed, in the little booklet. Someday, Lord tarries and I get retired and have the time, we may take all the material from these booklets and put it into a hardcover and make it an authored book where I can literally make the corrections that I think should be made and make it a little easier reading. But until then, these little books are filling a niche, and we know a lot of folk are enjoying them. So if you're interested at all, give us a call on the 800 number. Try to catch us between 8 in the morning and noon, because Irish works full-time, and of course I'm a full-time rancher. I'm not around the phone all that much. I refuse to put in a recorder because I hate them when I call somebody. So I just tell everybody out on television, if you don't get us once, try again. And if you try in the forenoon, one or other of us will answer the phone. And you know, it's amusing. I answer the phone and people are shocked, and they say, you know, I'm talking to Les. And I, well, of course. I said, I'm not beyond answering my own phone. Well, we thought we had a huge staff to do that. No, I said, the only staff I got is my other half, and I pick up the rest of them. So you feel free to call us or write to us, and we'll get these to you. All right, now those of you here in the studio audience, as well as those of you who follow with us verse by verse, let's go to Romans chapter 2. And we're going to deal now with the moral man. Oh, he wouldn't dream of living like those people do. Oh, wouldn't he? Verse 1. Therefore, thou art inexcusable, O man, whosoever thou art that what? Judgeth. See that? That's why I said in that first hour or last program we were going through, I won't look down my nose at these people. I feel that they are grossly in error, but I'm not judging them. Because but for the grace of God, there go I. And that's what I've been telling my class people. If it weren't for the grace of God, you'd be where they are, because you see, every one of us have the potential for all of this, because we're out of Adam. We're all out of Adam. And it's only the grace of God, naturally, under some parental teaching, parental inhibitions, which of course a lot of our young people today are not getting, but nevertheless the potential is there in every human being to go to the same depths. Now he says, whosoever thou art that judgest, for wherein thou judgest another, you what? You condemn yourself. Now the other nasty word for this is hypocrite, isn't it? Hypocrite. Oh, that's what the hypocrite loves to do. He likes to point the finger at the other fella, but he forgets that when he points 2 or 3 that way, 1 or 2 of them are pointing back. And so every one of us have to be aware of the fact that if we're going to start judging someone, we better look here first. Amen. For thou that judgest doest what? Same things. Oh, we wouldn't dream of doing it. Oh, maybe not overtly, but what about covertly? Or what about in the thinking processes, see? Oh, my land. I think any one of us would hate to admit what we sometimes run through our mind. Every one of you. And don't tell me you don't, because then you're not a member of the human race. because it's there. And I've always told people, well, you know what these little kids hear, that won't register. Oh no, it goes into that subconscious and it just lays there until just the right time, and then boom, it comes up into the conscience and they remember it. All right, verse 2, but we are sure that the judgment of God is according to truth against them who commit such things, even if it's only covertly. And thinkest thou this, O man, thou that judgest them who do such thing and doest the same, that thou shalt escape the judgment of God? You see that? Even the good person who wouldn't dream of entering into a homosexual relationship, oh, he wouldn't dream of it. But mentally, in his thought processes, he's just as guilty. Now you remember what Jesus did with the commandment, thou shalt not commit adultery? Boy, he took it so far that none of us are clear of it. Even if you think it in your heart, you're just as guilty as the person that does it. Now that's hard for us to comprehend, but that's what the book says. That's what Jesus said. And so you move on through all the way through these verses, and it's dealing with this moral person who says, oh, I wouldn't dream of doing those things. And in the same breath, he condemns those that do, but God is going to judge him just as much. All right, let's see, I'm going to skip some of these. I'd like to get as far into chapter 3 as possible in this program. But verse 6, no, verse 5. Let's go back to verse 5. But after thy hardness and impenitent heart, treasurest up unto thyself wrath. See, there's that word again. It has never happened yet, but it's coming. The wrath and the revelation of the righteous judgment of God, who will render to every man according to his deeds, to them who by patient continuance in well-doing seek for glory and honor and immortality, eternal life, but unto them who are contentious and do not obey the truth, but obey or live in unrighteousness, what's their future? The indignation of God and his what again? Wrath. Now remember, God has never yet poured out his wrath. That's something that is still future, but oh, when it comes, it's going to be beyond human comprehension. Well, come all the way down to verse 11. There is no respect of persons with God. In other words, God is not going to treat an American better than a Japanese. He's not going to treat a German better than a Russian. He's not going to treat a white person better than a black person. With God, there is no difference. There is no respecting of persons. We're all sons of Adam. Verse 12. For as many as have sinned without law, in other words, outside the realm of Judaism, they shall perish without law. In other words, it's not going to excuse them just because they weren't under the Mosaic, the children of Israel. Those who have sinned in the law shall be judged by the law. Well, we know what the law does. We'll see that in the next chapter. It condemns everybody, because every human being that's ever lived other than Christ himself has already broken the law, and so they're condemned. All right, verse 13. For not the hearers of the law are just or justified before God, but the doers of the law shall be justified. Now we have to be careful. That's under the law. Go all the way back to Deuteronomy. No, Exodus. Let's go back to Exodus. There's one in Deuteronomy too, but I think the one in Exodus is plainer. Exodus 19. Exodus 19. Exodus 19, and come down to verse 7. Here the children of Israel had just recently been brought out of Egypt. They're all encamped around Mount Sinai. Moses has gone up into Mount Sinai to receive the Ten Commandments and the law from the Lord himself. Now he's come back down from the mountain, verse 7, and Moses came and called for the elders of the people and laid before their faces all these words which the Lord commanded him. Now he's going to refer it to the children of Israel. And all the people, that is of Israel, answered together and said, all that the Lord hath spoken, we will what? Do. See? Now that's legalism. That's law. And whatever the law commanded, Israel says, we'll do it. Well, if it was done prompted by faith, that's what God wanted. But nevertheless, remember that law demanded doing on the part of its adherents. It had to be prompted by faith, of course. But they still had to do what God said to do. Now I'll come back then to Romans chapter 2, and this is what Paul is talking about. That when the Jew was under the law, he couldn't get by with faith plus nothing. He had to have faith plus doing something, whatever the law demanded. So, had to clear that up. Verse 14, for when the Gentiles who have not the law. Now keep that in your computer, because in our next program, I hope, maybe this one, but I think it'll be the next one, we'll get into Romans chapter 3, and Paul is going to lay it out as plain as day of what the law does and what it does not do. All right, so the Gentiles who have not the law do by nature or naturally the things contained in the law. These having not the law are a law unto themselves. Now I have to read verse 15, which shows the work of the law written where? In their heart. Their, what's the next word? Conscience. Their conscience also bearing witness, and their thoughts, see that? Remember what I just said? They may not be guilty of it overtly, but they're going to be guilty of it covertly, especially in the thought processes. Their thoughts, the meanwhile, accusing, or, oh, there's the next word, excusing. That's human nature. Now, where does it all begin? The conscience. When God created Adam, what did he put in his breast, as it were? Conscience. And conscience was to precipitate confession. And that, of course, is what prompted Abel to bring the required sacrifice. His conscience convicted him, and he listened to it. But you see, it's within the realm of human nature to spurn conscience. I mean, we can burn it, and we can get it to the place where it just is no longer active. And of course, that's what so many people have to do. But it's there, and you can't ignore it. All right, then verse 16. An amazing verse. In the day when God shall judge the secrets, that is, the secret activities of these moral people, as well as the open activity of the immoral. But there's coming a day when God will judge these things by Jesus Christ according to what? My gospel. Now, what's Paul's gospel again? That Christ died for all these sins. He died for the sins of every homosexual that has ever lived. He's died for the sins of these moral hypocrites. He's died for the sins of these religious people that we're going to see in the next series of verses. And consequently, God is going to judge the human race based upon that. You wouldn't have to go where you're going, because Christ has already settled your account if you would have just believed it, see? And so they will be. You know, that just reminds me, I have a tape at home, and I don't remember who is on it, but the name of the tape is Our American Heritage, or Our Godly American Heritage, I think is it. And he expresses in that tape, and he reads from Supreme Court opinions of our early days of our nation, where those Supreme Court judges, in their opinions, quoted this book. Quoted this book in their opinion. Can you imagine that happening today? And in another place, he points out how that our top government officials, presidents, and top cabinet people maintained that America could not survive, and it didn't just say the Bible. They said, unless America remains true to the gospel of Jesus Christ. I couldn't hardly believe that when I saw that. I could understand that men like Washington and some of those would say, we have to stand on this book. But many of them even narrowed it down that it has to be based upon the gospel of Jesus Christ.